Hello, and thank you for tuning into this short question and answer style video session being produced as part of RoseTGB's online powered two-wheeler event. I'm delighted to be joined by both Heidi Duffy, MBE, facilitator of the Shiny Side Out Partnership, and James Rees, the Managing Director of Koala TV, to discuss the Shiny Side Out Partnership's 3D Know the Dangers campaign. Right, before we get into the meat of the presentation, I'm going to ask you both to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the work that you do. Starting with you, Heidi.
Hi, my name is Heidi Duffy. I'm the facilitator for the Shiny Side Up Partnership. That's an East Midlands regional road safety partnership looking after motorcyclists and trying to reduce motorcycle collisions.
Great stuff. And I'm James Rees. I'm the Managing Director of Koala TV, and we are a video production company specializing in 3D animation and live action filming.
Thanks both. So shall we now move on to the Know the Dangers campaign? Heidi, sort of a short overview of the campaign itself and the resource, and perhaps how the digital versions come about.
Yeah, no worries at all. It was a former resource that we've used quite successfully, and as you can just see over my shoulder, the old version was a laminated pictorial folder which showed different scenarios of motorcycle collisions, the most common ones. And this was widely distributed to CBT trainers, to schools and colleges, and was used to great effect. It's got teaching notes on the back, so each time the student sees a particular scenario, the person doing the presenting can sort of warn about the hazards of the particular type of accident that we see motorcycles involved in. But obviously, paper and laminated sheets are rather old hat. So we got an opportunity to work with Koala TV, who have got the latest in all the Techno Wizards 3D animation. So what we really wanted to do was to bring the collision scenarios to life, to be able to put the rider in the positions that we'd put in the illustrations, but actually see them manoeuvre into the dangers. So it's called the 3D Know the Dangers resource. And basically it started off as that, but now we've moved on to something very exciting and obviously very animated, so all good.
Yeah, so James, with this in mind, how did the team at Koala sort of go about approaching the brief? For example, how did you come up with the ideas for the street scenes and generally sort of make each scenario come to life?
As Heidi alluded to, it's kind of a really interesting process transferring what was, historically a printed resource that was guided through with a trainer, all of those type of things. And there was very much like a level of interactivity between the asset and the rider themselves, and kind of transferring that into something that communicated kind of quickly, succinctly. And obviously these kind of, the illustrations are diagrammatic, they're plan view, so you see everything. It's really clear. It's really clear to understand. And what we wanted to do was take something with that level of clarity, but create, a world that the rider could see themselves in, was immersive, and had perspective and shape and all of those type of things. So when it came down to actually bringing them to life, first of all, we looked at every single one and we just decided how to script them, what the shot felt like. Were we looking at the point of view of the rider? Were we looking at the point of view of the driver? And I think that also kind of brings us back onto another bit, which is we didn't want to overly emphasize that it was just the rider. It was also, we need to take into account that also the driver has a really strong part to play. There was the two parts were in play the whole time. So bringing that to life was very much about kind of understanding the street scenes, where the accidents would happen, what was an appropriate situation for each particular scenario, something that people instantly understood and related to, whether that was like the lighting with the time of day, is it like commuting so it feels like morning, those type of things that are just kind of suggestive, whether it's the architecture as we see a run into a town center that feels like your daily commute, those type of things, or the high-speed bends one that kind of feels like a simulation of like somewhere like Snake Pass or, high-speed bends. So it was very much about that, understanding those kind of environmental and those kind of aspects.
Should we have a look at one of the films? I think this is film number 4 and it's titled Filtering SMIDC, which stands for Sorry Mate, I Didn't See You. Heidi, can you explain to me a little bit about this scene and what messages it was delivering and to whom?
Yeah, this scene was number 4 of Know the Dangers, and it is, as you said, filtering Smidsey. In this scenario, we've got the biker who's filtering slowly on the outside of a queue of traffic. There's a car at the junction waiting and indicating to turn right out of the junction. A car is approaching the junction ahead of the biker, so the biker's coming down the outside, approaching the junction. The car then flashes, something that we see quite often. A car will flash another one that's waiting to basically say it's okay to pull out. Unfortunately, of course, neither driver has actually checked the mirrors to make sure that it's safe. The rider obviously is going quite slowly, but is not able to see that the car in front has flashed. And unfortunately, the car turning right out of the junction pulls out right in front of the biker. The biker is lucky in this case because obviously he's anticipated approaching the junction, he's going at a speed that he can control, and he gets away with it in this scenario. But the message is to the driver, as you say, Smidsey, sorry mate, I didn't see you. It is up to drivers to look out for bikers. They're big, they're sometimes noisy, and they take presence on the road. And there is a really strong message here that this sorry mate, I didn't see you is not good enough. You should be looking for all road users and motorcyclists in particular. So a message to the rider, filtering's great, and obviously in traffic queues and getting into busy centres, motorcyclists will filter, but you have got to expect, unfortunately, the unexpected from other road users. So filter with care.
I now want to take a look at film 5. This one is just titled Filtering. James, can you explain to us how this version differs from the previous clip we've just seen?
How it differs from filtering Smidsey. So this particular filtering scenario actually shows a car turning right. So it's a scenario where the rider has been on an approach to a slower moving kind of line of traffic. What we've actually got in this scenario also is a van, is a medium-sided van. And actually what's really clear from this kind of depiction is that the vehicle turning right, even though its indicator is on and the traffic has slowed and is slowing behind it and still rolling in, the rider cannot even see the vehicle, let alone the indicators from its line of sight. So in this particular scenario, we added all of the kind of the biker's high visibility vest. We tried to make the biker as clear as possible. What we were also saying is, even if you're this clear, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to avoid or anyone's going to be able to see you. And the interesting thing with this particular one is that the van is slightly positioned out to the center line, which happens, you know, in all kind of forms of traffic situations. Vehicles are in different positions in their side of the road. So what's happened as a result of that is the saloon car in front, even if you watch it back in the animation, you know, you can see that there isn't, until the last minute, until the vehicle is turning right straight across the path of the motorbiker, there is no opportunity for the rider to actually notice that that car was there. So, and on the oncoming side is also a lorry, you know, a typical kind of road setup. And unfortunately, in this particular one, the rider ends up in a trajectory that sends it towards the underside of that lorry. So the kind of principal takeaways from this are, you know, obviously filter with care. There's signs that highlight what you should be looking for. You know, there's signs on the lamppost, there's signs for drivers. Drivers should definitely be aware to check their mirror when turning across in the right direction, but also riders to be aware when there's high-sided vehicles or things are obscuring their view, to actually consider why the traffic is slowing, what's causing it too slow, you know, and exercise caution in that environment.
Let's go for one more clip. This is film 6, which looks at overtaking. Eddie, can you talk us through this one?
Yeah, this one's out of the urban setting. You'll notice that a lot of the scenarios are set in urban 30-mile-an-hour street scenes. All the scenarios are actually based on real collision data, Stats 19 data, anecdotal data from the forensic collision investigators that I work with Nottinghamshire Police. And so all the scenarios are the most common ones and are happening, sadly, every day of the week somewhere. This one's, say, not urban, so it's not a street scene. It's more rural, so it's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. And this is quite common in the conurbation, where you're moving from perhaps one urban setting to another. In this one, it's got a long straight, it's a clear visibility, and the rider is following a car. 50 miles an hour speed limit, semi-rural, houses on one side, but also fields, etc., hedges on the other. The motorcyclist sees the junction ahead sign, so he is told that there is a junction coming up, but decides to do an overtake, thinking possibly he's got enough time to actually overtake the car. Just when at the point that the motorcyclist committed himself to doing an overtake, the driver, having not checked the mirrors or checked behind to see who's behind him, puts the indicator on and then starts to do a right turn into the junction. Obviously, the loser is going to be the motorcyclist here, and unfortunately, the car takes the rider off. And we're seeing this a lot, particularly in entrances to farms, perhaps to farm shops, to garden centres, etc., where the rider isn't anticipating that the car in front could turn right just as they're overtaking, and the driver is not checking to see if it is clear to turn right, which drivers should be doing.
I guess the important question now is, where will the films be available for people to watch?
Well, when this presentation goes out, what we've actually got is a campaign on social media to encourage people to have a look at the films as they're released. They're going to be released as a bit of a series, rather than just release all 7. Each one has its own facets, its own messages, its own scenario. So we're hoping that people will look at the one that's been released, and then eventually they will all be on the Shiny Side Up website, which is www.shinysideup.co.uk, and there'll be a campaign page on there that will have the films on. Now, the films are shown, there's 7, they're all about 20 seconds long, so we will be using them on social media. There is a long version of all 7, which people can download and play if perhaps in those days when we had events, or you want to just put it on a loop. There are a second set of the films and the long one, and they've got no messages on. So basically, you will see when you look at the films that messages are superimposed to inform the rider and the driver what they should be looking for. But we have done a set, they've got no messages on, and that is for trainers or presenters in colleges who can show the film and then ask the students, riders or drivers, what do you think happens next? So each of those films, one's with safety messages, one's without, and the 2 long versions will be available to download free of charge.
So to confirm, the non-safety message versions will also be on the Shiny Side Up website?
Yes, they will, and hopefully we'll clearly mark them so you don't get them mixed up, because they are identical. Just the difference is when you get to the end and all the messages, the Shiny Side Up signs, etc., they're not on there, so that people can actually talk through the scenario and give students a choice of saying, right, what would you do now? And hopefully that will encourage them to discuss the type of accidents they're involved in or they see, and so the right messages to the driver or rider will get across.
Excellent. And James, do you have any final words, perhaps, or anything you'd like to add about the project?
I think as a biker myself, you know, embarking on a project like this, realized the kind of significance and the importance of what it was about. You know, that actually getting the assets right, getting the scenarios right, making them relatable, making them digestible, all of those type of things are hugely important. They're you know, they're potentially life-saving. So yeah, it's a project we've very much enjoyed working on. We've taken on with a lot of passion, and we really hope that it helps, you know, riders and drivers alike to understand, you know, how easily a scenario can kind of unfold, you know. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So just to confirm, all the videos will be available on the Shiny Side Up website, which is www.shinysideup.co.uk. And I'm sure Heidi will be happy as well if you're after more information to take any emails, and I will place Heidi's email on the screen right now as we speak. And so all that's left for me to say really is, on behalf of me, Heidi and James, is thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.